And the next guest on the podcast, we're blessed with the presence of Jock Campbell. Jock, how are we, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. I don't know how I made the cut, mate. I've seen the caliber of people you've had on, mate. I'm not sure I'm up with them, but glad to be here.
Mate, we're pleasured and humbled with your presence, honestly. It's a pleasure to have you. You know, I think they're going to put a statue of me in the Shire. We had Buzz Rothfield, Shane Flanagan, yourself. Might be running for mayor soon.
Mate, you can have it.
Hey, no, please, I don't want it. Not in these times. Hey, talk to us about COVID times. You know, how are you adapting in these tough times?
Mate, we had a good practice run last year, and I think as a small business, we can just, if we decide to do something, we can just do it. And probably all our contract work went as soon as COVID hit. So schoolwork, clubs, teams, sort of had a contract that was going to go ahead with Cricket Australia as well, but that all just fell flat. But the thing that we love the most is our athletes, basically. And so it was, well, how do we look after them? And we heard about this Zoom, so we tried that straight away. We tried Zoom gym sessions. We tried Zoom run sessions, which have been our most popular. We did pair sessions. So we're busier than ever because we're putting on so many more sessions to cover everyone. But yeah, and still the part that we love, like I said, is doing the athletes. That's our favourite part. So that's been steady she goes. And the good thing is, even in the areas of St George where there's a harder lockdown, I've got two of my coaches over there. One you've had on the show, Ali, and so they've been able to look after the kids over that side as well. So we're sort of, yeah, it's hard, but you know, we're still doing what we love. So that's the best part.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I feel that camaraderie, the spirit, that never give up attitude is important in these testing times, and not taking that victim mentality, rather being proactive, persevering and pushing on, which you guys are doing from the sounds of it. Talk to us a bit about yourself. As a youngster, you know, you get into health, you know, your line of work speaks for itself. Talk to us about what inspired and pushed you to further your education and take the path that you have.
Mate, really interesting. Sorry, mate, I just lost you there. Really interesting. I was thinking about that today because I thought that might be something you asked me. And ever since I was a young bloke, I was always fascinated in why people were faster than others, why people looked stronger than others, how you get faster for a sport. I was always interested in that. And probably 13 or 14, I started asking my brothers, how do you get fitter for rugby? Like, how do I get faster? How do I bowl faster in cricket? And my brother goes, I don't know, do some sprints. And, you know, that was the extent of it in those days. And I had a good PE teacher that loved, he was a first grade rugby union player. And he just said, oh, you just run heaps. And sorry, mate, I'm going to have to plug this in.
No, you're right, mate.
Yeah, just plug it in the power.
Yeah, we do it all, the technical stuff. We get around everything.
Yeah. Mate, yeah, so that was sort of just got, you know, sort of was finding my way. How's that, mate? I can change this.
You're all good, mate. Yeah, as long as you're comfy.
Yeah, so it was, and I had my rugby coach, he was my PE coach, and as well, and he was quite interested in it. So I got a lot of advice for him. You know, it was very raw in those days, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do school-wise, but I knew what it had to be bought. And I played cricket didn't know anything about it, and used to just go on the events if they came up. But and go okay. And then my father found this course that was right near my home after school, and it was sports science. We didn't really know what it was, but it was involved sports. So I said, yep, sure. And that was at the Oatley campus of New South Wales Uni, which is now, I believe, it's a school. And I lived at Connells Point, so I was like 3 kilometres away. I used to say to the teacher if I was ever late, oh, I'm really sorry, my ferry was late. And all my classmates knew that I was joking, but he didn't. So, yeah, man, just had some unreal lecturers. One was a distance running coach, one was a sprint coach. That anyone in the class, if they wanted to learn how to sprint, he'd coach them, and he ran for Queensland, so he was trying to make it back there again. And so I just had a really good base of young when I was passionate about it, and that's where I've just started.
Yeah, no, that's important. So the passion came from your environment. You were exposed to certain personalities. So then when you started to further that, where did you get your stripes and how did you get into it? Because I've had a lot of coaches on, and a lot of it is volunteering, going, putting yourself out there. What is some advice we may give to people that are watching this that you can pick up and, channel your passion into a career potential?
Well, I think you hit on some great points there. You have to go and do a lot of volunteer stuff. So back in those days, I'm talking the mid-'80s, there were no jobs in sport. You could be a rugby league strength and conditioner and if you were at the absolute best, you could have a full-time job, but it didn't pay that well. And a lot of the clubs still only had part-time strength and conditioners. I'm talking about NRL clubs. So there wasn't a lot in there, but my background was cricket, and I got into athletics and running because I wanted to get better at running for cricket. And I was better at rugby, and I sort of fell into that as well. But I always wanted to get faster. But for me to learn, I had to go and try these things out. For me to get work in cricket, I used to take the strength and conditioning sessions for my clubs for free. And then I played for Sydney Uni, and then I played for Sutherland, and that's in the Sydney Premier League comp. And, I was a young bloke in first or second year uni taking these squads that had professional cricketers in them. And they were trusting me because I was the only one that knew anything about it. And I hoped one day there'd be a job in cricket. And when there was so much experience in all different sports, but also all my studies have been towards cricket. So when you say, what's your advice? My advice is find that thing that you're passionate about in the area, not the thing that you might make your money, but the thing you want to do the most. Go and become the most experienced in that. And yes, you will have to donate a lot of hours, but what you're getting in return is experience and knowledge. And I saw a thing yesterday on coaches. For an athlete to want to use a coach, they have to have trust that they know what they're doing. So if you've got the experience and the knowledge, whether you've played or not, playing previously definitely helps. So do as well as you can in your chosen sport, but then become the most experienced you can and work with as many different people you can and under as many different coaches you can to learn and become highly experienced. And then when you find the right job or the right environment that you really like, volunteer there and say, I want a job here, and just learn that position. Because when they need someone and you know the position, you're a good person, you're working really hard, that's when you get the job.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So it sounds like passion, perseverance. You've got to put in the time and the hours and clock in the miles, and then your performance will speak for itself. Because a lot of people, especially in the times we're in, we believe, or you're told, you go to university, you get your degree, after your degree, you're sought over and everyone wants you and you're a prized commodity. And unfortunately, it's not most the case, because I'm a graduate. I graduated in the era of COVID. It's a bit tough. You have to be a bit, creative and think on your feet and a bit different. Likewise with my friends, especially one of my mates who's doing nutritionist, and he got a gig at the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So he was doing the Jersey Fleck team, the team under the first grade team. Because of COVID, all things went to shit, so they say. And he's out of a gig now. So it's always about changing, evolving, continuously striving, putting yourself out there. And that's something that you did as well. And it pays off eventually in the end of the day.
Oh, 100%. When I say there was no money in sport, like there was no money in my industry. Like I'm getting into an industry, and I knew I accepted, okay, I'm not going to earn a lot of money in life, but that's okay because I'm doing something that I absolutely love. And there's so many different options. So your mate that got the job with the flag, you know, it's even time for him to, if there's no money in it now or no opportunities, speak to those flag boys, give them nutrition programs while they're in lockdown as well, because they need someone to lead them, to show them that, look, this is what you could do in the meantime. Keep fit because your opportunity might come, and it might come very quickly, and you've got to be in good shape. And then that way, all of a sudden, he's helped these boys that one day will be first graders. Some of them will play for Australia, and they might be in the opportunity to go, this guy, he helped me when no one else was helping me. So that's how he might get, you know, further in his sport. But also it's about, you know, when I say there was no money, I just absolutely loved it. I hope there was going to be some jobs in it. And if you're passionate about it, like you've done this podcast, and I've seen the guys and girls you've interviewed, these stars. I don't know. Like I say, I don't know why you got me in here when you've had Jock on here and you've had the King Najim on here. But yeah, there's always a way. Yeah, there's always a way. And always look for those opportunities, like you've done, like I had to do, like your mate can do. Like there's great opportunities there. And don't ever look at something like this is COVID. We've never seen anything like it before. Hopefully, we never see anything like it again. But you know, if you can find a way here, you can find a way anywhere. Yeah,
most definitely. That's like we mentioned earlier. You've got to be proactive rather than reactive in these tough times. You know, we're in uncharted territory, and we've got to make the most of what we got. And there's no point playing the victim card and saying, "Oh, I can't do anything about it." So you've got to be on the front foot, as they say in cricket. You know, you can't keep playing on the back foot. So talk to us about the cricket passion. You break into the Australian gig in the 2000s, and it's a full-time gig. So now you start to put everything you learn into practice. Talk to us about that step up, and you know, you become a mentor, a leader, and a teacher. And how was that? And how did you adapt? And how did you feel in that environment?
Well, I think if I'd got the job 5 years earlier, I probably wouldn't have been ready. But I'd had such a grounding in grade cricket from the mid-'80s. I'd been in my last year of university, you had to go and do your prac somewhere with a professional sporting team or the AIS I can't remember if it was my mum or my dad wrote a letter to Rod Marsh, who was the and Rod Marsh had just taken over the Cricket Academy from a couple of sports scientists, and it was in its early days, and that's where they used to take probably 20 of the top young cricketers from around Australia, and they'd spend a 3 or 4 month period over the winter training like they were professionals. Anyway, mum or dad, I can't remember who, it was in the old days where you wrote a letter. They wrote a letter to him, and he's rung back on the old dial-up phone saying, yeah, sure, come down and do your prac there. So I went there for, I think, a couple of weeks, and Rod goes, oh, mate, if you play grade cricket in Sydney, just join in with the boys, do whatever you want. And I'd played against a few of the boys, and it really gave me confidence that, you know, they were doing a bit of fitness down there, and I jumped in with the fitness sessions, and it wasn't well organised or in the physical side of things. The coaching was unbelievable. But I just got the confidence that, oh, maybe I'm on the right track here. I don't feel out of my depth taking these guys. And that was in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Early 90s it was. And like there was Gilchrist and Kasperwitz and quite a few of the guys that would go on to be stars. And anyway, and then I'd worked with my grade clubs. There'd been test players, like John Dyson was the captain of Sydney Uni when I went there, and then Sutherland. And then I'd worked with a number of the boys that had already played state cricket. And all the way through, I worked with cricketers on the side, whatever job I did. And I worked with Cronulla Rugby League for a while as a strength and conditioner, and
worked with elite swimmers. And so I was getting all this background work with different sports. And I always worked with runners and sprinters and distance runners. And so by the time I got to the New South Wales cricket side, I was quite confident in what I was doing. And I'd been training a lot of like Steve Waugh and Mark Waugh and McGrath individually. And so by the time I got to the state and then the Australian team, I was very confident in what I was doing. And as I used to say, look, training a runner, you've got like 2 or 3% improvement in them if you're lucky. And that's if you get everything right. I said, training these cricketers, they've got so much to go in those days. I said, mate, I don't have to do that much and I'm going to make them better physically. So I used to joke about that. But, so by the time I got to the Australian team, I was quite confident in what I was doing. And I had done all my growing, like I was mid-30s. I wasn't a party boy or anything. So I was just there because I loved cricket. I loved training athletes. I loved what the Australian cricket team was doing and what they were achieving, what they were striving for. And they were so good to work with, mate. They just wanted to get better. And so for me, it was, I was just ready. I was so ready for it when I got it.
So you had put in the work, you trusted yourself, and you crossed paths with a lot of them. So that's what helps. And you were in your mid-30s. Now, a lot of people have that pressure and that preconceived notion that, there's certain thresholds I've got to meet by certain ages. And as well with the pressures you see in social media, you need a house, you need to be earning X amount at X amount of time, yada, yada, yada. So you're saying you put in the hard work, it comes out and, it flourishes. You put yourself, because you said earlier, had you got that position 5 years earlier, you wouldn't have been ready for that. So then you go into that and you implement what you know. Now, you were a bit ahead of your time. Talk to us about the methods that you used to implement, because I seen a photo of you with the ice bath and the ice bucket. So how was that trying to, show the people you guys are doing the cricket things to the T, but your strength and conditioning now needs to get to the next level? How was that?
Yeah, mate, it was, once again, I didn't think a lot of basic things had been implemented. Like the guy before me, Misso, he'd made it easier for me. And Errol was a physio before that. He had to do everything, mate. He had to do the fitness, the physio, the organised massages, throw balls to players. It was just him and the coach. And then the manager. So, like, when we got there, it was like, Misso said to me, mate, I haven't taken for weights on tour. I don't know how to fit it in. It's, mate, if that's what you want to bring in, that, go for it. But he said, I just couldn't find a way to get it in. So the resistance training, I brought that in and just gradually got in there. We used to doing weights leading up to a season, but never in season because I played so much. And when I say played so much, a 5-day test match, you might have 2 or 3 days between the next test. So it's how do you fit it in? And also, just preparing for the heat, something as a sports scientist, I thought was quite a basic thing, but it's really good to say, this is what's missing. But then it's, like he's in Queensland, this guy's in England, this, in there leading into a tour. How do I do that? So, I was only the second full-time guy that had done it. And it was me, the physio, and a head coach. That was all that was looking after the team physically. So in some ways it was quite easy because I just had to say to the coach and the captain, and look, this is what I'm thinking. Okay, let's give it a try and let's implement it. Now there's like 10 coaches and, it's really hard to get something done that quickly. So along the lines of that small business I was talking about, if you decide to do something, you just go ahead and do it. We brought in the ice baths. Misto, I brought them in before me. I just made everyone do them. That was the big thing. And I took it around the world with me. And just even getting ice to a ground in India, there's no ice machines at the grounds. There's no ice for drinks down there. They have a lot of the food they've got in the stalls isn't even refrigerated. So I'd either have to get it organised at the hotel and take down big eskies of ice with me, or they'd bring in these big 10-kilo ice bricks that I have to break up. And mate, one of the first tours I went on, actually, I took the big garbage bin. It was to India, and we've tipped it out at the end of the day, and the water's gone all in the toilets, but then it's all come out all over the boys' kit bags, all the cricket pads and mate. So we're running around picking up, and I'm going, oh, I'm a dead man here. but the boys are pretty good about it, I've got to say. And so it's something as simple as that. It's just Mate, I was just determined. I wanted, they put in so much effort to do their best. I wanted to make sure I was putting just as much effort to help them get support staff, to support them to be their best. Like a Brett Lee, for example, was this fast bowler. He's just a great kid, great athlete, but raw. And I knew when I got to the Aussie team, the first test he was in, he sort of going out a bit wider in Perth on the crease, changed his action a bit to push it, get reverse swing. And he was getting wickets. He said, my back started hurting, but I just kept bowling. So changing his action in just one spell gave him a stress fracture in his back. Like those are the forces going through the body. So anyway, he came back, and then later in the season, he came back and he threw a ball in Perth into the wind. It's a big boundary, big strong breeze, and he had a really powerful arm, but he snapped his elbow in half. This is the toughness of these kids. He doesn't look tough. He doesn't behave tough. But then you go, and he went and bowled another over after snapping his elbow in half. His pace was right down. So I'm racing around and going, what the hell's wrong? And he goes, oh, something's wrong with my elbow. Anyway, so thankfully Steve Waugh sent him off, and he'd severed his elbow just from throwing a ball, putting in that much effort to throw a ball. So anyway, he'd never been through a professional season and got through the full season. He was a young guy that bowled fast. And so I showed him this article on alcohol and research on alcohol and how it increases the risk of injury by 100% for an athlete. And this is the mark of the kid. He said, what are you saying, Jock? Do you want me to stop drinking? I said, well, mate, you've never been through a pro season without getting injured. I think during periods of competition, which are basically 10 months of the year, I said, it would be wise not to. And he goes, okay, I'll do it. And he did 10 months, not a drop of alcohol, which for a young kid in Australia in those days, culturally is a big shift. And, professional sport was just coming in. So, and nowadays it's quite common, but in those days it was very uncommon. And so he went through and got through a full year of cricket without it getting injured. And his body totally changed that time. He just became ripped, and he could bowl faster for longer periods. And it wasn't just the drink, it was the fact that he really bought into all the training I was doing. And that was the main thing. The drinking was just a little example of the steps that these guys take to become the best.
100%. So it's like the sacrifice there that they're willing to take. And a lot of the people from my communities, parents, children, very highly skilled, yet they always fall short of the mark. Now, you've had a lot of dealings with Ali, so you would know a bit about the context of the culture and how we're brought up, so to say. So taking that story from Brett Lee's inspiring for the youth and the people that are watching. It's more than raw talent, it's discipline, it's commitment, and it's the 1%ers that you're willing to take to get to that next level.
Oh, 100%. Like there's, the way I explain it is you get people that go quite well at sport who are very talented and they work hard, but not hard enough. And I've got a lot of athletes that fit into that mold. And then you've got your ones that aren't quite as talented, but do everything right and they get to a little bit higher level, or they make it. But then when you get someone who's super talented and works super hard, and it's not just, oh, yeah, I'll train hard. Yeah, that's fine, but it's training hard for 15 years and then you just might make it. And when you've got a super talented guy who trains super hard for a long, long period of time, you get your Brett Lees, you get your Ricky Pontings, you get your extreme Najeems. But it's so true. And there's very few of them that you're going to have in your squad, but they're the ones that they're the ones you love because they've just given everything to try and develop their craft. And so when they have success, you're so pumped for them because they've worked so hard. And on that Brett Lee story, it took us 2 years to get him to bowl 160 Ks an hour. So in the 2003 World Cup, that was our aim. We wanted to hit 160 Ks then. And that's what I mean. It took him 2 years of just consistent work. And in that World Cup, we talk about athletes peaking at the right time. He's bowled his 5 fastest spells of all time in history. And in the semi-final, he reached 160 Ks an hour. And he bowled 5 balls in the 160s. And that was, 5 days before the final. So our peak, we were trying to peak him for that end of that tournament, the pointy end. And that's probably the one I've got, almost absolutely perfect. And he won us a couple of games, sort of that semi-final in the World Cup. We were bowled out for just over 200, and he's come in and Marvin Adipatu, who was one of the world's best batsmen at the time, he's just ripped through him with pace. And I think that was one of the 160 balls. He just bowled him and took a couple of early wickets and got us through to the final. Like, it was just an amazing time. We had an amazing team that had worked so hard for 2 years to get there, and then just someone always produced in every game. So, you say, oh, you won a World Cup in 2003, but the way we won it was on a knife's edge for so many of those games, and any one of those games that we didn't have someone stand up, we're out, So to succeed at elite sport, you just have to do that. You have to consistently work hard for a very long period of time and have to have a massive amount of talent. And then you just might make it.
Yeah, it's important. And that 03 World Cup, Punter, he gets 140, if I'm not mistaken, in the final. Yeah. Talk to us about working in that dressing room and the personalities and the hard work that they put in that campaign, because you got your Brett Lees, you got your punters, you got your Haydos, you got your Gilchrist. How did that group work together? And what was special, especially as a coach, as a mentor, someone looking from the outside in, because you were involved in that? What was so special about that whole campaign?
Well, it was just, there's so much talent. Like you brought up 5 or 6 names there, and they're all some of the greatest cricketers we've ever had. And you didn't even bring the War Brothers up and the Justin Lang and Damien Martin. Like, in that final, Damien Martin was actually the one that got us going, and then Ricky jumped on the back of him and took over. But Marto got, with a finger that was just mangled that he broke in the semi. And he had to pass a fitness test to get it, and straight after the final, he went home and got it operated on. And he's, the genius of our physio, we're all got, who fixed it, and just the willingness of Marto to get in and play, and took a great catch in that final as well. Like, just those stories, and you say, what was so special about them? Well, they were all special players, and they just got on really well. And it's the old story. Did we get on really well because we win all the time? Or did we win all the time because we got on really well? Who knows? But what they did is, there were lots of different personalities. And I saw Matt Johns on a show the other day. A team's like a dysfunctional family. And every family is dysfunctional, let's be honest. That's what he said. And which is true. Like, there's always your personalities, your egos. For that team to have so many great players and their egos to be in check, and they all kept each other in check, the sledging, the smart-ass comments. It was just great fun. And, mate, none of us could wait to get to train. We all love training. We all love competing. We love the tours. And, mate, it's hard work. Like, you're on tour 10 or 11 months a year, all over the place. You're into a hotel, you're at the training grounds, you're at the pool to recover. You're eating breakfast, lunch and dinner together, every social occasion together. You're playing 4 to 5 days out of 7. And then you're throwing travel on top of that, after every game you're traveling. And you think, I used to say to the coach, he goes, oh, it's only an hour flight. I said, yeah, but it's 4 hours door to door, Buck. And he goes, oh. And so he didn't believe me. So at the time I said, how can you not understand? You're doing this with me. And so I just think the mesh of unbelievable talent, the support, like our captains were great. Like, there's no doubt they were great, and they got the best out of people. And some of the players might not have liked that, but they certainly brought the best out of everyone. And they would never ask any of their players to do, or never demonstrate that they could do what they'd ask their players to do. So, and it was just that wanting to win all the time. Like, what's it going to take to win? What training do we need to do? How hard do we need to play? We've always got to believe we can win. And do everything possible that we're in $1 million shape when we get on the field.
100%. It's important for the listeners and the viewers to take that from the stories, to see the hard work, the dedication and the sacrifice that's taken throughout the tours, they're leaving their families behind, they're away from home, and they're, on service playing for the country. Now, an example, you're a fast bowling coach, and it's something where you're passionate about the performance aspect of that. What's the difference between a Brett Lee and a Glenn McGrath? Because, boy, they both complemented each other so well. You got one with 160 pace, and then you got line and length for Glenn McGrath. It's like he doesn't get it wrong in any over he bowls. How was that?
Yeah, McGrath to me was the best fast bowler of all time. Like you know, this, and the stats probably show that he had the best average, one of the best strike rates, and took, you know, I think he's the first fast bowler to get over 500 Test wickets. I'm not even sure how many he finished with, but it was a lot. And, you know, he could just land the ball on a dime. So when you talk about McGrath, he was quite quick when he was young, but he worked out. He's so skillful and so talented. I remember in the winter we were preparing for a tour, and he lives, you know, a couple of Ks up the road from me. So I'd take him for his bowling workloads just at the local park. This is the best bowler in the world. And we're at the 5th grade ground, and I said to the groundsman who I knew, mate, can you just get me a wicket ready that he can have a bowl on? And so we're bowling this backwater sort of ground. You know, it's not like England or these, you know, professional athletes that get everything given to them. It's just, oh, yeah, and he didn't care. He just country lad. Anyway, he's bowling, and I was just mitting him with the baseball glove. He bowled one, and I go, okay, here's smart Alec. If you're so good, hit my keys. So I threw my keys onto the pitch. The first one missed by that much. Second one, dink, he's hit them. That's how good he was. But he said he was uncomplicated. I say he's smart. He just would stick to a length, a bit like Curtly Ambrose, and he wouldn't change off that. You know, he knew that if he could hit a certain area, they couldn't score off him. If they were going to try a dangerous shot, good luck to him. And he just moved it enough. And he was just, you know, he said to me once, he goes, look, I get nervous in these big games for a big series, but I know if I've done everything possible off the field and prepared as well as I can, I then get on the field and I go, well, it's worked for me in the past, so I back my skills, and then I just let my body go. And that was him. He wouldn't get taken. No one could take him away from his focus of, I'm going to bowl to you here, and I know that I'll get one to move off the seam, I'll move one away, or I'll go slightly wider on the crease. I'm going to fool you, and you won't have the patience to be able to wear me down. And, you know, he could bowl the ball on a dime. If you wanted someone bowling for your life to keep a batsman down on runs for that last over in a one-dayer, he's your man. He was number one bowler in the world for well over 5 years. But, you know, he's just a country lad, so he wasn't the big star he probably should have been. He always said it was a batsman's game. And then you had the fire and brimstone of Brett Lee, who, well, no one wants to face 160 Ks an hour or 155. And he bowled out swinging with an old ball. He could swing it in going Irish, and he loved one-day cricket, and he was a lethal one-day bowler as well. So to have them both in the one team, and then Warney and Jason Gillespie and Andy Bickle sitting on the sidelines, is pretty ferocious bowling attack.
Yeah, look, I grew up watching that era, and I was the type who would sit down 5 days, watch Test cricket. I loved it dearly. And I never got to play it, and I got to school, high school, year 7, and I played with a knockout in the year 12s. And I was a guy, you know, I backed myself, I talked the talk, you know, I played park cricket. I never forget the first ball I faced. I didn't see the thing. It hit me, I bruised for a week. The thing was my whole thigh. I threw the bat, I'm like, you're kidding. You know, and I thought I made a lot of friends. Everyone was talking to me. It turned out they're all sledging me. I thought I was popular. You know, I go, they all know me. I go, geez, I wasn't that, eh? So it was it's a good experience, you know. By the time we got to year 12, I legit done PE in year 12, term 2. The PE teacher dodged it because we'd won them a couple of cricket games. Our school had never won a cricket game. So, I mean, cricket got me a bit of things. That's the most my career ever got to. So, with yourself, you won an Ashes. You got the World Cup, you know, the lowest amount of injuries ever under your tenure. What was the pinnacle? What do you take out of that and say, that was the highest of highs in my time with Australian cricket?
Mate, there's so many. Like we won on every single continent, and we won the first. We'd won the first time in India. We won a Test series since I think it was 1968 was the last time we won in. And so we won in 2004, and again that was another massive build-up, and we haven't won over there since. So it's the only time in what's that? I don't know how many years that is. It's like 50 years that we've won in India. So we won in Sri Lanka for the first time. We won in South Africa. The World Cup has probably got to be the most special win. Ashes are right up there. The India trip But again, there's so many great experiences, and but I'd say the World Cup was my favourite, just from the work that went in, and that's the pinnacle. And you get one chance, the finals one chance, the semi-final one chance. Like, it's just so many knockout points where, we might have got knocked out, but we found a way, and that was the great thing about that team. They could find a way to win from anywhere. And Andy Bickle doing so well then when he worked so hard was just on the fringes. But one of my favourite bits was we played in India. It was probably one of the greatest test series of all time, and it's talked about now. And we'd won a world record sort of 15 tests in a row, I think. And then we went to India and we won the first test quite easily. Second test we played and we were all over them. Steve Waugh sent them back in a bat, and they had just a once-in-a-lifetime partnership and they won the test match, and then going on, they won the series with 2 wickets to spare on the last day and the final day of the test series. So it's just a phenomenal series, and it really cemented my love of India, of going to India and cricket in India. It's just a different thing. It's the fans over there are mad, and I just love the cricket over there. It's different wickets, but there was an earthquake, and a lot of people got killed, and so they put a charity game on the day after the third test. One day players had arrived, test players were going back home that night, and they were really tired and didn't want to play. And I said to Justin Langer, well, mate, if you don't want to play, what about I field for you and you just bat? And he goes, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. And so, the boys are my team sledging me. So Andrew Simons and Harvey and Darren Lehman's the captain. They're all into me. You're going to make a mistake. And I said, mate, everyone expects me to make a mistake. What if I take a catch or run out Sachin? And I almost ran Sachin out. I've thrown the stumps down, but he was at his home. And then near the end of our innings, we bowled first, and Ian Harvey's going, I'll give Jock a bowl. And Darren Lehman goes, oh, he doesn't want to bowl. I said, bullshit, I'll bowl. And he goes, oh, but you'll get hammered. I said, mate, everyone expects me to get hammered. What if I get a wicket? He goes, okay, which over do you want? I said, give me the last over, 50th over when they're slogging. And so I ended up getting 2 wickets for 3 runs. And one of the blokes I got out got 50 in the next one day off 38 balls, which was massive in those days. So I said to Steve, well, mate, you've got to let me talk about bowling at the death in the team meeting. And my good mate Vulcan, who I used to train, was the ex-gladiator. He would love the wrestling, and he always had this saying, which I'll give you in a minute. And Steve was going, right, Jock wants to say a few words. He said, boys, want to talk about bowling at the death. There's nothing to be worried about. It's all mind over matter. I don't mind, and they don't matter. And they started throwing things at me. So, mate, I made our media manager get a copy of that match. So I've got it on video on the old VHS. So one day I'm going to get that turned into digital, and I'm going to put up those wickets.
So
that was my highlight of my cricket playing career. But probably the highlight tour would have to be the World Cup.
Yeah, so, the dressing room, the locker room, you've reached and you ticked a lot of milestones in your tenure there. Now, from there, do you go on to work in India, cricket in India? What is your experience there, and how was that also to have in the kit bag for yourself moving forward? Like, what lessons were learned from that experience?
Oh, mate, that was another amazing experience. I sort of stopped with Cricket Australia. I'd had 2 shoulder operations from throwing too much with that arm and throwing too much with that arm, and was potentially going down to job share. But in the end, I needed to get both shoulders done again. So I sort of couldn't do it anymore. And so I was going, well, what do I do? I'm stuck here with having 2 shoulder operations. Don't know if they've really been successful. I had to get 2 tendons reattached in both shoulders. So I started my own business and convinced my wife and my best mate, who was the Penrith strength and conditioner at the time, to come out and be poor with me and start a business on her own. So we sort of could run it ourselves and just train athletes. And on from that, I found out that there was this, T20 cricket was starting to take off, and there was this thing called Indian Cricket League. And Glenn McGrath put me into it. He was he was going to sign. There's a couple of others going to sign, and it was a bit like World Series cricket, where it wasn't approved by the BCCI, so Board of Control of Cricket in India, but they assumed it would be. It was going to be run by an Indian TV company, and they thought they'd come together and etc. So I was charged with putting in all the physios, the strengthening dishes, and the masseurs for each team. And I was head of high performance for the whole competition. So it was an unbelievable opportunity for me, and it was fantastic. The first, 2 days after I'd signed, I was over in India at a training camp with 80 cricketers and one cricket coach. And they were all sort of looking at me. They said, "You're the first international we've signed. This will give the boys hope that we've actually got a competition," because they'd signed all these Indian cricketers that hadn't been able to play because they all of a sudden became banned from the sport. And I didn't know this till after I signed, but I still probably would have signed anyway because I wasn't working for any cricket over here. And so, I got in, all the players started coming in. I was signing lots of Australians and South Africans and Poms, and it was just fantastic. There was, I think, 5 internationals in each team, so 8 teams, and we played all these competitions, and it ended up falling over as IPL came in. But and sort of lasted for maybe a year and a half. And to be fair, I sort of assumed once we found out that they weren't going to merge and IPL was coming together, we sort of knew it wouldn't last for a long period. We sort of hoped a couple of years, but, amazing experience. And when I knew it was falling apart, they were running out of money, I'd been offered a couple of IPL roles, and one was Glenn McGrath again. Rang me and said, "Oh, mate, don't sign. I've organised with the Indian Cricket Board that you can sign with them and me and a couple other players. I don't know what they're going to do with you yet, but," I said, "Oh, mate, I'm starting next week. It's a really good opportunity." And so probably could have had the same role for IPL, but that's all right. I look back, it was just such a great experience with some of the Indian players I got to work with. And a lot of them messaged me to this day. And a few of them came out here and trained, and they couldn't believe Sydney and, the beaches, and they go, "I feel like I'm on holidays all the time." But yeah, just a great experience. And I got to work with a lot of my old players as well, and, different coaches from around the world. And now one of my young strength and conditioners that I put with my team and with me, he calls himself Rajamani. His email address is Rajamani36524. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. He is ready for his athletes. And that's him, mate. And he's now got a job with I think it's Rajasthan Royals in India. He does a similar thing to me over here, but he's just taken it to the next level. And I'm so proud of him for work. I mean, he works harder than me, and I think I work hard. But no one deserves it more than him. His study and his hard work. And what's that? That was from 2008, 2009. It's taken him now to 2021 to get that role. And I see him now, he could well be an future Indian strength and conditioner. So really proud of him. And it's just fantastic to see that someone that you work with so much has now gone on, and he's going to supersede me in how good he is, I think.
So, yeah, look, it's important. And from that, it's hard work, determination, and the long game. A lot of people want things quick, fast food, fast money, fast everything, and they're not willing to put in the miles. And you continuously did that throughout your career. And, it's a lesson for us all to draw from when we're looking at your story and the interactions that you've had from players, the networking that you've had. It's, by no chance that luck comes and success comes. It's always through hard work, sacrifices, and then the fruits of your labor eventuate and come into fruition. Now you do that, and then you've moved on and you transition into something a bit different now. Talk to us about when you became a producer and something about the magazines and something a bit different where you wish to market what you did, but in a different way that, galvanizing your network of athletes or your, target audience was now broader. What happened there, and what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it was really interesting. What India gave me was a massive opportunity to learn about TV and production. I mean, I went. It was run. This competition was run by a TV station, and the guy that pretty much ran the comp was a TV producer. So I took the idea of doing the GPS tracking live on TV, And mate, they're like, us a small business. They're a massive business. He goes, yeah, that sounds good. So Tony Gregg would, he was such a support. So he got me in there and got me in a meeting with them, and they said, yeah, that sounds great, but you'll have to be on the TV with us to tell us what it all means. I said, sure. So, mate, I'm running a team. I'm at every game to do this GBS stuff. And then I started going, well, why don't I take some master classes on the cricket show in between innings breaks? And they said, sure. How do you do that? I said, well, send me a couple of cameras and I'll get a couple of players and we'll do some skills. So I did about 12 master classes on conditioning cricket, footwork, on running between wickets, on all this stuff, weight training for cricket. And it was just great fun. And what I learned was, it's not that hard. Well, I didn't think it was that hard. And so then I, when I came back from India, Tony got me to bring it into Channel 9. And so did the same for Channel 9, which was great. And we saw the digital era starting to pick up then. And so we just said, well, we've got all these contacts, all our athletes, all our coaches that work with us. Why don't we put together a magazine and see what happens? So we had a few sponsors and they jumped on board. Now, we didn't know what we were doing, but the articles were fantastic. You look back at them now and they're still amazing, from, Peter Hadfield, who was a two-time Olympian, and Eloise Wellings, who's now made 5 Olympic Games. Craig Stevens, who, was a multiple Olympian and World Championship medalist. Just these people we had writing the articles were just amazing. It was very time consuming. I think we didn't know how to market it. We just had our mailing list, and I think marketers became more savvy with the sponsorship dollar. So we they were throwing money out to start with, but weren't really sure of how it would work, or and we'd love to get it back up, but we got busy doing other things. So yeah, it was just great fun, and on that, it was sort of a good fit in with the Channel 9 stuff, and I was writing articles for a magazine in England on cricket. And so, mate, I was just doing everything. Like when and having a small business, I could do that. So it was really enjoyable time, and like you've done a podcast, why not? Like, who's to say I can't do it? It might work, it might not, but I'll enjoy doing it, and I'll enjoy having a crack, and we get to talk about things we love doing. And working on the cricket show for Channel 9 was fantastic, doing some master classes. So that all sort of tied in together. Just spreading the word.
100%. And see, what's consistent with the story and throughout this whole podcast is you had a passion, you've chased that passion, and, it was, your intention was so, in the way pure, and it was really not about any monetary gains. It was about living the life and, showing and sharing the passion you had with others. And that's something that eventuated, because if I'm not mistaken, the cricket show, but it became the hour innings break in the lunchtime. So I swore by the flipper. I told everyone I learnt by Shane Ward. I learned it on the show. So it's something, it galvanised a lot of people, and myself included. I was watching as a youth. So, it helped as well fit in, because, again, like you said, you went to India, the culture thing, and you learn with one another, and you can have a conversation. You can talk about the T20 Big Bash. You can talk about the IPL. You can talk about what's happening in the World Cup. If we're in a World Cup year, and yada, yada, yada. It brings around communities. It brings about relationships. And as you would know, you went on to make Jock Athletic. Now, you're involved in schools. You're involved with athletes. You're involved, and you have many programs running. So you've continued that path of education, spreading your wings and giving your knowledge to others, and inspiring future professional athletes and generations to come, like you said, with the coach that you have now at Rajasthan Royals. Talk to us about the Jock Athletics and what you're doing currently, and what are the plans, and what is the mission statement of you guys, and what do you live for?
Yeah, it's really interesting, mate. All my life, I've sort of, even when I've had good jobs, I've always trained my runners and cricketers on the side, and always done the surf lifesaving. Was, once I stopped playing cricket, I went into surf lifesaving, became a runner myself, and worked out there weren't many coaches in there, and I started just coaching my mates who were the runners, and they ended up being pretty good. So, so I've always done that. Even when I had the cricket for that, I was away with cricket for 10 years. Like, when I worked for Channel 9, And I'd get back on a Monday, I get back early Monday morning or middle of the day Monday morning from a test, and I'm at training that afternoon to take my runners. And sometimes I'd just show up and I'd have one of my other coaches on, and they go, "How did you get here so quick?" So, mate, like I say, I just always loved coaching my athletes. And so that's where Jock Athletic started. We sort of all decided we wanted to run our own race, and you know, we had these runners we wanted to help them get to as far as they could. We had cricketers that we wanted to help get to the next level, and just sort of wanted to run our own. You know, my mate had done footy for so many years, and all winter, every weekend was taken up with footy. All summer was taken up with pre-season training, and so your life's sort of taken over by these sports, which is fantastic. But you know, at some stage, you know, you have kids, and you just want to run your own life. So I'm just as busy as I was ever, but at least, you know, my kids still think I see them all the time. Because even this, you know, I've got my home office, they're just there. So you probably heard them screaming at some stages. So Jock Athletic was, you know, we sort of wanted to rival a bit of an N-Swiss, maybe with, it sort of evolved over the years of, you know, getting people to that next level, that putting professional services around amateur athletes that maybe wanted to become professional or even just wanted to do their best, you know. So, and as I say, when you're working with the Australian team or the New South Wales team, you've got this, you know, a conveyor belt of the best bowlers in the world coming to you, or the best cricketers in the world. Whereas when you've got your own academy, you get the youngsters and maybe some good ones, and you help them, but then they go off into those professional setups. So, you know, it took us a bit of a while to work the whole system out. But with runners, I'm a running coach. You know, we do everything for them. We give them their strength and conditioning services, their speed work, their distance training, their recovery. So we could give them that setup that they couldn't afford with a professional setup, or couldn't afford previously to buy. So it's much like a swim squad where you pay your fees, and you get unlimited gym and unlimited running sessions, and a plan, and tested. So we bring that elite sport testing and screening, so we can find out exactly what you need, what your goals are, and help you get there. And it started out, we just did adults, but then one of our mates had a friend, and they wanted their son to join, and he was only like 10. And mate, we had Wendell Saylor training with us before he went back to St. George at this stage. And I'm going, oh man, I'm not sure how this is going to work. So I let everyone know. I said, look, we've got a young kid coming. I don't know how he's going to fit in. Like Michael Ivanovsky, he lives over your way. I know you're probably watching this. And he was the best little kid of all time. And all the seniors loved him. And I've got a photo of him with Wendell. And he's this tiny little thing. And there's big Wendell in our, who was awesome for our squad as well, Del. And anyway, then we worked out that teenagers turn into adults. And, you know, it was like a light bulb moment that we needed to have a feeder system, or we weren't going to have too many athletes for very long. And now the thing that gives me the most joy is watching an athlete start, like an Ali, another girl, Chloe, who started with me when she was 10, and to see them progress through. And Chloe, after 10 years of training with us, won a senior surf lifesaving national title. So when I say it takes 10 years of that consistent hard work to achieve something, you know, that's what we're talking about. It doesn't happen with 12 weeks of hard training or giving sacrifices for, 6 weeks. It's like, it's a lifestyle. It's, if you want to actually become the best, you've got to live it and breathe it. And so that's what we're about. We're just about helping people get to where they want to go. And we've sort of narrowed it down. We started off with doing personal training and corporate and our athletes, but we realized after a while, we're only doing those because everyone told us you'd have to do that to earn money. Well, money's never been the driving force for us. So we eventually just went down, no, we're training athletes and people that, whether they want to be the best in their school or the best in their club or the best in the world, that's what we're after. That elite attitude, doesn't matter your ability, doesn't matter your level. If you are committed and want to get better, you're for us and we're for you.
100%. And like, I played sport, never at a higher level. And it was only until after when I was in university, I said, I need something to get me going. Then MMA boomed, and, a lot of people think they're tough and they can live that life. It's like, you know what, let me give it a crack. And it's not until your ego gets hit and you kind of get bashed and you come back and you keep trying to pick up a skill when you're learning. And I turned out to be, and I was lucky to stumble across a world championship gym. Now, I trained at the gym with Rob Whittaker under amazing coaches who were also coaching, the Penrith Panthers. You got them at the Sharks, you got them at the Bulldogs and the Souths, yada, yada, yada. And that just professionalism, it's infectious because it rubs off on someone like myself. You would have seen it with Ali as well, with the story that he has. And geez, how he came back from that foot Rico when he came on the pod and said that. I mean, that's a story of its own. And I live across the road from where he does a run. So, mate, I can't even see him. I'll try and he's boom running around. So the professionalism that he has and the hard work that people like that put in, it rubs off on people like myself. And I'm like, oh, wow, I was a sore loser. I learned how to lose. I was someone that wasn't off discipline. I'm like, okay, everything that I thought I had, that my perception was not reality. Now I learned, and you see from that professional environment that there's a lot of growing to do as a person. There's a lot of lessons that you may learn. It doesn't have to be on the track. I wasn't the most athletic person. I wasn't the most gifted person. However, when you're rubbing shoulders with greatness or with success, you're only going to elevate your game to that next level. And I feel it's important to, need some discomfort to grow. If you're doing everything easy and you're not putting yourself out there, you're doing yourself an injustice. And I feel that's something that your programs offer, and something that you're, especially with the schools and the youth, and, you're producing coaches and you're trying to give people an arm in the community, like someone with Ali. Talk to us about that relationship that you guys have had with the surf club and how you've broken a lot of barriers that others wouldn't have thought of.
Well, you mentioned something previously about in India. So I'll give you an example. In India, the teams they had, and this is historically India and Pakistan. There's been tensions there forever, right? And I don't know the full history. I know the country split at some stage, but we had Pakistani players playing in with India, and we had South Africans, we had Sri Lankans, we had Indians, we had Aussies, we had people from all around the world. And so I've always worked with athletes from everywhere. And for me, John Saru, a lot of your viewers will know him. He was just a bouncer at a nightclub, big Fijian guy, very, very funny man. Don't tell him that because his head's already too big. But, one of the first professional athletes I trained was John Saru. I walked into this gym at Sutherland Leisure Centre. I just got the job there. And he was the only one in the gym. And they go, oh, meet John. And there's this massive Fijian, bandana, huge. I'm going, oh, shit, look at him. I thought he's pretty intimidating. And he's the funnest guy, nicest bloke. Yeah, he just started cracking jokes with me. And so, mate, all the way back, I think Australia is so good. We've got so many different nationalities. It just never was, for me, I just saw Ali, there's a good kid that loves training hard, mate. And to be honest, I didn't know he was Muslim. He just turned up one day and I didn't know his background. He just turned up and he goes, you guys do running, don't you? And I wasn't there. I was away with John online. And Paul Littlejohn was one of our coaches and I rang him that night. I said, oh, how'd you go training? And he said, oh, yeah, good. There's this new kid. Mate, I don't know if he'd be back. He was pretty good. Fun guy. He just charged. And then he'd be cooked for an interval and then he'd jump back in. And he said he wanted to sign up for 2 sessions a week, but I don't know. And so I got there and he was just a ripper of a kid, worked really hard and was good fun. And, mate, I didn't know he was having problems. I didn't know he was having problems at school. I didn't know he was getting in troubles. To me, he was just a fun kid that, put in really hard. And I was trying to get him to come to Sandhills. And he kept giving me all this, I play cricket and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was about May or June. I said, mate, you got to come to Sandhills. He goes, no, I've got cricket. I said, Ali, do you understand that I work in cricket? That the cricket season's been over for 2 months. He goes, oh, okay, you got me. And anyway, he's turned up to Sandhills an hour early. He turned up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, middle of winter. He rings Zane, one of our other coaches. He goes, oh, mate, where is everyone? He goes, mate, you're an hour early, bruzzy. He goes, oh, I think I'm just going to keep running in circles because I'm too cold. So, mate, that's how he started. He turned out to be quite good on the sand. I said, mate, why don't you join the surf club? I think you'll be really good. running on the sand. Like, you picked it up quite well. It's a total different technique. And some people pick it up, some people don't. Everyone can pick it up, but it's just a matter of whether some people just are natural at it. And so, I didn't, again, mate, I didn't even think of this. He tells me years later, he goes, mate, I was quite nervous when you asked me to join the surf club. And I don't even think of it. Oh, why? Just because of swimming? He goes, no, just the whole Cronulla riots thing. And I said, oh, sorry, mate, I didn't even cross my mind. It's, you knew everyone you were going to come and run with. And mate, to see in his first ever surf carnival, or first state surf carnival, he won the under-19s and then backed it up. I've got to tell you this story too. Backed it up sort of 20 minutes later to win the Opens, which had never been done before. And when you do a middle distance race, it's tough to explain, but you push yourself to the limit. You feel sick afterwards. You're dizzy. It takes a long time to recover from, and it's very difficult to do 2 in a row. In athletics, you'd never do it, but in surf lifesaving, that's the way it is. And anyway, so to see at that carnival 200 kids from our surf club cheering early on as one of the favourite sons, mate, it was pretty good. And just on that, he said, now this was quite early, and it's probably the first year of him training with us. And he goes, mate, I thought you were an absolute, mate, fool. He goes, I'm on the ground. He's winning the under-19s, and there's a guy just 10 metres behind him. It's close. And he's claimed it as he's run over. And Mel, my wife, who's a champion runner too, she's given it to him for, don't you ever do that again. You get across the line before you. And he goes, I've never won a race like that before. Anyway, I was 200 metres out. I always give him information on how far he's ahead or behind by. I said, mate, you got to go. He's right on your tail. Anyway, so by the time I got to the finish, he's on the ground, got oxygen on with a paramedic around him. And I'm walking up going, how am I going to get this kid up to run in this open race? It's only 20 minutes away. And so it's an old trick. So I went up, and there's all people around him. He's got this oxygen. And I said, get that fucking mask off your face. There's 200 people around here thinking you're the world's biggest soft cock. And he's looked up at me, and he's sort of gone, he goes, I've never felt this way before. Because I'm looking up at you going, what's wrong with this bloke? And the paramedic started laughing. And so he goes, as soon as the paramedic started laughing, I thought, oh, because, mate, all it means is you just didn't have enough oxygen. You just needed to breathe deeply. He was fine. I've seen it happen a million times. And so we got it. And I said, mate, get up and let's get moving and get you ready for your next race. And so he goes, mate, I didn't know how to tell you I didn't want to do the next race. And anyway, so he's off walking. All the clubs come in, cheer, high five. And we hadn't won one of them for about 10 years, I reckon. And he's and I've gone. He still looked pale. As I said, mate, I yelled out this out in front of the whole crowd. I said, mate, stop telling everyone how good you are and come over and get ready for the next race. He's just shaking his head, but laughing. And so, mate, and then he went on and he won another great race. And he said, once he got moving again in the warm-up, he started, the colour came back in his face. I said, mate, I knew I would have never said something like that if I thought there was something wrong, but I wanted to put your mind at rest that there's nothing wrong with you. You'll be fine. Just push on. And he, so, mate, he's just, and I've thought about this. I was saying off the air to you, I never look back at, what I've done or where I've come from. It's always what's happening now, what's next. And so it's not till I get on a show like this that you remember these stories and how much fun, that we've done so much and how much fun it is. And it's just recently, everyone, I always say, oh yeah, he's my favourite, she's my favourite. Like, I've got a million favourites. But it is true, I do have favourites. And I was thinking back, okay, why Arlene my favourite? And you go to someone like Arlene or Brett Lee and Chloe, who I've mentioned before, and there's a lot of them that have 100% committed to what I've been selling. And they've had great success. That doesn't mean that I know everything. It just means that they've believed in it, I've believed in it, and they haven't ever wavered from it. They always ask me questions, but they've never doubted me. And I think that when you've got that, I trust what they're going to do, and I know what they can do, and I know how hard I can push them and where to push them to. And they believe that I'm never going to get them to do something I don't think they can do. I think having that trust, and that's why they're your favourite. They're great people. Whether they're good athletes or not, I don't really care. But if they've got that much trust in you, and then they have that much success, that's a bonus. So our Ali's and my relationship started long ago, and I knew he came from once I found out more about him, I knew he came from a poor background, and him and his brother supported their family. And so we sort of gave him the sponsorship. And then, always when we go away to events, like he'd never been interstate. He'd never been out of Sydney, really. I think he'd been one trip to Wollongong or somewhere. And so I'm taking him to France. I'm taking him to Adelaide and Perth and for all these races. And he's going, man, because I haven't even left Sydney. But, we always try to look after him. Now he's a permanent member of our, whenever we go on holidays away for races, my kids say, Ali better be staying with us because he's more fun than me. So, mate, yeah, it's not a, it's like you said, you get to see different cultures, and to me, it's never worried me what someone's race is or nationality or I don't see that. I see a good person. I see a person that's fun, good heart, that works really hard. So where they come from is really irrelevant. And that's just me. I don't know if that's normal, but and I don't know where that comes from, but it was probably my parents, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And look, it speaks with your career. You're a critical free thinker. You're someone who went and excelled, and you became a sports scientist. You're someone who always questioned and followed what your gut told you because you followed your passion, and your work speaks for itself. See, a lot of people don't have that, and that's a problem that we have. And, that's part of this platform. I felt that I questioned, I seeked, and I acquired some knowledge. And now the responsibility of knowledge is trying to give it back and trying to show that you've got to network, you've got to break the ice. You can't stay in your own bubble. You've got to get out there, have a yarn, have a chat, tell them what you're about. And then, the world's your oyster, because we've got a lot of people, a lot of talented athletes and a lot of talented kids from areas that I've grown up with and areas I'm associated with. They wouldn't know that there's professional programs in coaching and there's numbers and there's sports science. For you to get to that next level, you're going to have to get out there and source that. And now it's important that stories get out there, and people, for some reason, I felt, and part of the reason why I wanted to do a podcast is people thought you were born successful, or you were born a good runner or a good athlete, or you were born a good coach. And it's all of a sudden you woke up and it's a Cinderella story and it just happened. And they dismiss the years of work and sacrifice that one puts in. And is that because it maybe puts them to sleep better at night, or they live with themselves better? Possibly. However, the way out of it is dialogue, talking, breaking the ice, and putting yourself out there, like I mentioned earlier about that discomfort. So you've done that, you've established relations with people. Talk to us as a coach, as a mentor, because you've coached your Brett Lees, you've coached your Steve Smith, your Michael Clarks, your Mark Milligans. You've crossed over many sports. Now, what does your program, as a sports scientist, what's your responsibility as a coach, as someone who's helping steer their career when it's different sports and profession? Does it differ from sport to sport?
Oh, 100%, yeah. And it's not only does it differ from sport to sport, it differs from state cricket to national cricket, state league soccer to national league soccer to international. And that's to do as much with the travel and the different conditions, the different cultures, the different foods. But for sport, 100%, it's different. So as a sports scientist, exercise physiologist, strength and conditioner, whatever you want to call what I am, we taught from when we were at uni, you didn't specialize in different sports. You were a strength and conditioner or a sports scientist that could go over a range of sports because there wasn't that many. And so the first thing you do is analyze the movements, the energy systems, do a needs analysis of that sport. And for someone like Mark, if he was going to a hot climate to play soccer, we had to get him ready for the heat. Whereas if you're going to play in England, not such a big deal. So that's basically the way. I think the best thing to do is not overcomplicate it. It's, your soccer play, you run this much during a game, short, sharp sprints, you need to jump high, you need a powerful kick, you need to go through to extra time, so you need to massive aerobic system. And guess what? In a tournament, you might play again 3 days later. So you've got to be in amazing condition to do that. And so it's all about develop, and then you work out how much time you've got before this event. So for a runner like an Ali, he's got 1, maybe 2 major races a year. And so we've got a whole year or 6 months to double peak him. For Mark Milligan, I got him when he was injured. And so he got sent back from China and had an injury that was very common in AFL, but not very common in China and soccer. So they didn't really know what to do him. And Kieran Rooney, who is his uncle, was also his physio. So he sent him to me, and it was great to work with. He was working with Ricky. And so some of the things cross over. Obviously, they've both got to run in their sport, and they've both got to do short sprints, and they've got to have a good aerobic capacity for their sports. So a lot of it did cross over. But, they're all different timelines and different events. So that's as simple as you can break it down. But I don't think we should be scared of that. Now that it's gone into all that specialisation of sports, it doesn't mean that you can't do something else. I've always been a running coach as well. But when I got back from cricket and started this academy where we had runners as well, they go, what does he know about running? He's a cricket coach. And it's like, well, no, I've been training these champions all the way through my cricket career, but I haven't been promoting it. There's no social media so it took me a long time to establish that trust again back in that sport. So, my first ever paid role for sport was with swimmers, strength trainer for dryland coach for swimmers. And that's how ironically, that's how I got into surf lifesaving, because 2 of my swimmers who were Ironmen and women, Nathan and Simone Cotter, end up being world champions. They kept telling me about surf lifesaving and how there's running in surf lifesaving. I said, I thought it was only Ironman and boats. I said, no, there's a run, and they had to run in their Ironman in those. Uncle Toby's days was fully professional, and they actually got paid more than the cricketers back in those days. Surf lifesaving was a massive sport, but then all the funding, the sponsorship fell out of it. Anyway, so that's how I got it. Well, do you have a running coach? No, we just do a bit of running here and there. So that's how I became a sand running coach, because they had to do a lot of conditioning and running in the sand in their sport. And so it's, you'll get a lot out of working a whole lot of different sports, even if you've got your main one. So don't just lock yourself off. Have your passion, but also learn from other sports. And I mean, I got you see these med ball slams, which I first saw Jim Courier, who was a tennis player, was a multiple Grand Slam winner from America. And he was on an ad, and he was doing 400-metre sprints. He was doing these med ball slams for his serves. And I went, this was in the mid-90s. I thought, that's a really good exercise, power exercise for a fast bowler. And so I've picked that up from watching a tennis player. So many things you can pick up from different sports. And there's a lot of really smart strength and conditioners out there adapting and coming up with great ways. And there's so many people you can see doing it on Instagram now. You've got to sift out what would work and when it should work, but not to get carried away. That you've got to have the foundation of good strength, good control, good triple extension through the hips, knee and calf, ankle if you're a runner or from a running background, running sport. Fighters or like Jack Brubaker, a boxer we work with, he had to be very strong and powerful, but not put on any size. So they're all little tricks that you have to do and you can do for that. Whereas footballers and, some of them need to be a lot bigger and explosive and powerful. So there's so many different parts to each different sport. You just got to break down, work it out, and then come up with your periodized plan. If you need to be ready in a year or 6 months or 3 months, what does that mean to your programming?
Yeah, 100%. So it feels like you're always evolving, learning and keeping up with the times and the athletes and catering it to what they need. And lastly, the only thing that we haven't done is the Mitch Johnson bowling app. How did that come about? Because newsflash, Mitch Johnson, my favourite fast bowler. So talk to us about working on this app and what you're trying to give to fast bowlers, because you started with cricket and you're still giving back to fast bowlers currently.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. When I through the Channel 9 stuff and doing the cricket show, they came to me one year and they thought I was going to be upset. They go, we've got to tell you, Gatorade's taken over your segment on the cricket show, and they really want Brett Lee to be on the show with you, on the segment with you. And I've gone, yeah, beauty bigger. He's one of my favourite players and great mate. They go, oh, we thought you'd be upset. I said, mate, 3 people will watch it if it's my segment. If you've got Brett Lee on there, 1 million people will watch it. So I did, from that, I said to Binger, mate, do you want to do a DVD on fitness, like a cricket fitness DVD? And he goes, yeah, sure. Come and see Maxie. His manager was in the next room. And so that season we did and mate, I had to shoot it. I had to come up with all the idea. Channel 9 said, yeah, you do it. You get the cameraman. So mate, straight away. And once again, I thought, oh, this isn't that hard. And they gave us a producer, but who was helpful, and he helped all the gaps, but we sort of came up with everything. And then I did another one with Mike Hussey and then Mitch Johnson. And Mitch was still playing at the time, and I knew him quite well, and he'd often ask for advice. And what an athlete. And same thing, I asked him, mate, and his manager was Ricky Potting's manager, who was another good mate of mine. And I said, mate, I've got this idea for me, Mitch. And he goes, yeah, I'm sure Mitch would love it. So went and asked Mitch, and he was all over it. So we did a DVD, and then it came to, I had this idea of a training app or a web-based program that was automated for fast bowlers, because I couldn't be everywhere. And before I got too old and couldn't demonstrate a lot of these things, I thought I better get this up before no one wants to look at my stuff anymore. And just went to Mitch with the idea of doing something along those lines. And then we got suggested, why don't you put it in an app form? And so we did that. And mate, it was a lot of work, and we came up with a formula. So we filmed, I think, 500 exercises in one day, which the cameraman keeps telling me is a lot. And every time he talked to me, he said, is this interesting? Could you just film me? So it costed me a video here. It was a really good mate of mine that was doing it. So I don't think we would have got anywhere near half of those if it wasn't my mate, who was Howie. I hope you're out there. And then it was just coming up with an automated way of doing it, and then coming up with every different ramification. If you started here, if you're anywhere along the 52-week cycle, when your season's fit. And Mitch was just unreal to work with, mate. He's just, again, he's like Brett, like just worked so hard, was such a phenomenal athlete. And just, mate, the guts and balls that those blokes have, just putting themselves out there, every week, every year, performing at the highest level for 10 or 11 months a year, and what their bodies went through. Like there's, 10 times your body weight going through your front foot when they land. And then for Brett, if his foot's landing like that, he had a real big angle here of the shin. And so that his foot would land and the shin would actually slide forward while his foot stayed still. He ended up having 6 ankle operations in that front ankle because his tibia, which is the big bone at your shin, just started crumbling away. Wow. And mate, he was bowling at one stage, and this is digressing just slightly from Mitch, but he was bowling one day in South Africa. He'd come back from an ankle op in Sri Lanka. And it was a trial game. And I said to mate, how are you going? Your pace is a bit down. He goes, mate, it feels like someone's sticking a knife in my ankle every time I bowl. And this is what I'm talking about, the toughness of these guys. He had blonde, tinted blonde hair. He was tan. He had white teeth. He didn't look like a tough guy, but they're made of steel. And he goes, Jock, I don't mind bowling with pain, but this is ridiculous. Anyway, so he tried to bowl another over and ended up getting sent home. The operator, he had the size of a cashew nut piece of bone floating in his ankle and was just getting jammed in his ankle every time he bowled. And so, like I say, we talk about toughness in sport and mental toughness. You can go to all the courses you want, but go and speak to these guys for 20 minutes and you'll get an insight into what mental toughness is. Mitch was the same. He went through so many injuries like that that he bowled through. And he said, you've got to try and work out what is pain, what's bad pain, what's good pain when you're bowling. So it's a brutal activity. And so to do, you say he's one of your favourites. He's one of my favourites as well, Mitch. So it was just a fantastic experience. And so it's basically aimed at that 14, 15, 16-year-old cricketer that doesn't have access to a me or to a Mitch or to a bowling coach. Because we always get the best coaching when we're older. When we're younger and we really need it the most, we generally get the mum and dads doing the coaching. So it's trying to get, both Mitch and I thought, what did we need when we were that age? What would have helped us? And he'd had 4 stress fractures in his back before he actually made it. And one of them actually cracked his vertebra right through. So before he'd even made it into the Queensland side, when he was in their state squad, and then he went back to building, they said if he got one more, he was out of the game. He would have never been able to bowl again. So imagine that. And just by having something like this when he was young to follow, could have avoided a lot of that. So that's why we did it. It's got the bowling loads. It's got how much you should bowl. If you bowl too much, it drops your program down. So it's a really interactive, and let's call it artificial intelligent app. And we did have a pilot program going ahead with 200 cricketers from Cricket Australia in that junior level, but then COVID hit, and Mitch and I were going to test them all and get them on the app and see how they went in all the regional areas. So hopefully that goes ahead at some stage, but at the moment that's on hold. But we're relaunching in it, and we're going to start marketing it. We've never really marketed it, so but that's in the future. Hopefully Mitch and I will be able to go around and do some camps where they stay in for a week and go through what it is, like almost like the Cricket Academy did all those years back. This is what it takes to be a professional cricketer. This is what you need. These are the areas you need to improve, and not to try and do it all on the first day, but it's a gradual process, that 10-year plan almost. And I work I'm on a Cricket Australia advisory board for the pathways, and that's what they're aiming for now with Cricket Australia. Is it's a 10-year plan from the under 14s or under 15s until you make the test side, and that's what we should be looking at. So that's how the app came about. It's some people have been on it for 3 or 4 years, and we've had professional cricketers on it. It's not designed for the professional cricketer, but it certainly would help you if you didn't have the access to the strength and conditioning that the professional setups have. So yeah, it was unreal fun, and cost a lot of money, and it took a lot of time, but I'm really glad. Like, I was very satisfied once we'd finished it. It needs a lot of improvements, but it's a really good resource.
Yeah, and I'm nearly sure you'll get there. So with your whole life and the whole career that you've had, it's success, pinnacle, hard work, determination, perseverance, and always evolving with the times. Now, what would you wrap it up and tell a young Jock in 2021, going through these times? You're going through university, you're going through life. What advice would you give your young self in today's day and age?
Don't drink. That'd be the first one. No drinking alcohol. That's a good one. I got carried away when I was at university. But I think the biggest advice is, look, there's so much opportunity in our area at the moment. There are no jobs. Now there's jobs in every different sport. Women's sport is taking off. For young girls out there, there's so much opportunity in your sport and for coaching. But just follow your passion. Don't do it because you think it's going to earn you a lot of money, or for the fame of, like, the good thing is I've never been interested in being at the ground, getting in the spotlight, being on TV. Like, it's like, I love, people call it the grind, and everyone asks me, why don't I get into managing, and you can make more money doing that, and haven't you had enough of coaching? But no, I think I'm, if you want to be a coach, this is what you get into coaching for. If you want to progress your career in corporate world or use this as a stepping stone, do something else, because it's not an easy way to get there. They say it's a grind, but I'm still training people at 6 a.m. Before this podcast was on until 6:30 tonight with St George Cricket. It's 7 days a week. You've got to be available with your athletes all the time, because they compete on the weekends. If they need your help on a Saturday night because they're racing on Sunday, there's no way I'm not taking that call. So it's a passion job, and if you follow your passion, and you'll be fine. But there's so much opportunities out there. Just go and do your studies like you've done, and like you said, and get involved while you're at uni with whatever sport you're interested in. If you're not sure what it is, just get a lot of experience doing different ones. But yeah, get as much qualifications while you're young and still got the energy, and play as much sport as you can. You know, if you're successful at your sport, it gives you a big leg up in coaching as well. So yeah, that's my advice.
Mate, most definitely. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. You know, we've been blessed with your presence, your knowledge, your experience, your expertise. The audience, everyone watching appreciates that. Your time has actually been greatly appreciated. And thanks for coming on, Jock. It's been an absolute pleasure. Wow.